Part 11. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 101. It was night, and Orgrim's consciousness became slightly clearer. Before he even opened his eyes, Orgrim felt pain all over his body, and he seemed to be falling apart. Although he has often been seriously injured over the years, this seems to be the first time he has been injured so seriously. Stimulated by the pain, Orgrim slowly opened his eyes. Familiar roof, slightly dim lights. "This is," Orgrim whispered softly. The next second, a surprising voice came from beside me. "Orgrim, are you awake? I knew you bastard would never die." "Damn it, I really envy your damn physique," Beckman called out in surprise. At this time, Beckman was also in a miserable condition. One of his arms was definitely broken and was bandaged and hanging on his chest. There was also gauze wrapped around his head, which was still a little bit red, and there were all kinds of bruises on his body. Several small incisions were sewn up and covered with gauze. There seemed to be some burn marks on the other hand. It hurt so much, Orgrim cursed. I felt a little bit about my condition. The shoulder of my left arm was comminutedly fractured. My body was healing on its own. My internal organs seemed to have recovered to some extent, but my breathing was still a little rough. As for the rest of the injuries, there were basically no injuries all over my body. Good place. Woke up so soon, my hawk stood aside and thought to himself with a somewhat surprised expression. When he first brought Orgrim on board, Nightingale carefully examined and treated him. After all, although Orgrim has a strong physique, but you can't do nothing, right? Beckman's injury was serious, but my hawk was lucky, and it was basically nothing serious. Therefore, he watched Nightingale's treatment of Orgrim in full. Basically, there was no uninjured part of Orgrim. When fixing his broken ribs, Nightingale also performed a thoracotomy. Orgrim's body was in a mess. Almost 70% of his lungs were shattered. There were quite a few cracks on the heart, the spleen was also bleeding heavily, and the liver function was basically completely lost. My hawk compared himself. If he was beaten like this, he would definitely die. Nightingale was also extremely flustered, although he knew that Orgrim's physical fitness was excellent and could even have strong self-healing power, but in this kind of situation, he would almost die. After giving first aid, he found that Orgrim's breathing had gradually stabilized. When he came down, he was a little relieved. After that, he also judged that even if Orgrim was lucky enough to survive, he would be in a coma for at least 3 to 5 days. The result was good. The night was not over yet, Orgrim just woke up. "We are, escaped," Orgrim ignored everyone's surprised looks and asked a little strangely. It felt like in that scene, even if Shiji, a big man, intervened to help, he might not be able to escape. Especially since he was beaten until he passed out, and it would be even harder to run away with him as a dragster. "Yes, you're lucky," Beckman touched his chin and said with a very strange expression. "What happened after I passed out? Is Shiji really that powerful? In this case, can we be saved?" Orgrim asked curiously. "No. After all, they are 2 Navy admirals, 2 Navy lieutenants. No matter how strong that guy Shiji is, he cannot do whatever he wants." Beckman shook his head and said. "My hawk asked you and the beast Kaido in the New World. Have a friendship. My hawk is indeed very strange. After all, as far as he knows, Orgrim has never been to the New World. In addition, not long ago, he rejected Kaido's invitation and then met him on the Shampoo Islands. Kaido also helped them inexplicably, which made my hawk feel strange." Kaido, Orgrim was stunned for a moment, and seemed to vaguely remember that he had seen a giant dragon before he fell into coma. "Don't know each other, have no communication at all," Orgrim shook his head and said. Although he has some knowledge of Kaido, it is true that there is no connection between the two and they do not know each other at all. That's really strange. Beckman said, smacking his lips. In the end, what happened? Orgrim asked. Beckman sighed and said, originally, you should have died, but for some reason, Kaido suddenly appeared in the Shampoo Islands and started talking to the Navy without saying a word. When he started working, it seemed as if he was going out of his way to help us. He even stopped Sakazuki and the crazy woman. Orgrim was shocked when he heard this. What the hell is all this? Is Kaido such an enthusiastic person? Or does he simply want to cause trouble for the Navy? Speaking of which, Kaido is also ferocious. People stopped Sengoku, Jun, and Sakazuki. Maybe Kaido has a lot of experience in group fights? After all, this guy always likes to challenge a group of people alone. And with this rich experience in group fights, with experience, Kaido stopped the three Marines and created conditions for Beckman and Mihawk to escape. Beckman and Mihawk did not hesitate and ran away with the unconscious Orgrim. They arrived at the Shampoo Islands. They didn't know what happened next, and they didn't know whether it was the Navy's victory or the pirates' carnival. Survival from desperate situations, is this our luck? Orgrim murmured with some emotion. I always feel like Kaido came here specifically to save us. If he really wants to fight the Navy, there's no need. Is it so strange to do it? Beckman murmured. Recalling the scene at that time, Kaido deliberately took some attacks that he didn't have to resist many times. When Orgrim was unconscious, they discussed it among themselves and came to the conclusion that no one had any friendship with Kaido. And now, Orgrim himself has denied this, making everyone even more surprised. Anyway, I survived this time, Orgrim smiled and said. At the same time, he felt aggrieved. After practicing in the capital of Seven Waters for more than half a year, he thought that his strength had greatly increased. After going to sea, he should crush any enemies he encountered. As a result, in the first battle, I was beaten so hard that I almost died there. This was really cheating. There is still a big gap between us and the top experts. Orgrim shook his head. Beckman and Mihawk looked at each other, and then said, I don't think the gap between you and them is too big. Mihawk and I, it's quite big. Beckman was not specifically trying to comfort Orgrim. In fact, he really thought so. If there was only one admiral here today, Orgrim would probably not be so miserable, and he might even be able to compete with him. They had a good fight. Although they still might not be able to defeat each other in the end, they would not be so miserable and embarrassed. And the two admirals were not simply 1+1. No one in the sea could defeat them both at the same time. A naval admiral. Shiki can't do it, Whitebeard can't do it, and the same goes for Roger. It seems natural that Orgrim was beaten like this. This is the last time. Next time I meet a naval admiral, Orgrim, will never be in such a mess, Orgrim said softly. His tone was very solemn. Losing once is nothing. Who has never lost in the sea? But you must not have your spine broken. If you lose this time, just get it back next time. As soon as this topic was over, Orgrim asked, where are we now? At sea, fortunately, supplies were relatively sufficient, and the crew barely left the port. Mihawk also made arrangements in advance, and we left directly. Beckman said with a smile. Orgrim breathed a sigh of relief at first, but then said helplessly, this is terrible. The Navy must have plans against us on the Chambord Islands. This time I can escape, but I can't go back. How can I enter the New World? As soon as Orgrim finished speaking, the door was pushed open, and Vincent walked in with a smile and said, Captain, are you looking down on me? A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 102. Early the next morning, the deep-sea overlord Black Narwhal floating on the sea became busy. Orgrim was sitting in a wheelchair and was pushed to the deck to bask in the sun. In fact, he could still walk, but even if he moved a little, his whole body would hurt, which was not conducive to his body's self-healing. Therefore, Orgrim still used the wheelchair honestly on Nightingale's suggestion. Son. I originally thought that the Navy had arrangements for them on the Chambord Islands, and it would be very troublesome to enter the New World. As a result, Vincent Dan, a great shipwright, jumped out to shoulder the heavy responsibility at this critical moment. It turned out that this guy purchased a large number of coating tools and raw materials on the Chambord Islands. I thought I would spend 3 to 5 days coating the boat properly. As a result, something like this happened, and he had no choice but to load everything on the boat and run away with it. Under normal circumstances, if you go too far away from the waters near the Chambord Islands, you will not be able to coat. Because of the different climates, the coated bubbles cannot be maintained and will explode. Therefore, theoretically speaking, in the first half of the Grand Line, the only islands that can support coating are the Chambord Islands and the ports of Holy Land Marijoa. Marijoa even used these bubble materials to develop an elevator that can go directly from the port to the Red Continent. If you get too far away from the Yarkman mangroves, the climate will change and it will no longer be able to support the coating. Orgrim and the others are in the sea area now, but because of Vincent, even if they don't have to dock on the island, as long as they have enough materials, they can coat it. The reason is also very simple, because Vincent Dan is a strong fishman. Port coating is a necessary choice for human coaters, but he can coat directly on the sea. At this time he was busy with this work. It will take about 3 to 5 days. Once the coating is completed, there is no need for Orgrim and the others to return to the Shampoo Islands to prepare anything. They can directly dive into the sea and head towards the Fishman Island. Orgrim was sitting in a wheelchair basking in the sun, Beckman was sitting under the mast reading a book with one hand, and my hawk was lucky enough to have nothing serious. He was holding a fishing rod in his hand, sitting on the edge of the deck fence, and was fishing leisurely. My hawk, Orgrim smiled and called softly. My hawk turned to look at Orgrim after hearing this, with some confusion in his eyes, but he did not speak. This time, what can I say, thank you very much, Orgrim said with a smile. My hawk nodded, then turned around and continued fishing, with no intention of talking to Orgrim. Orgrim smiled and didn't care about his aloofness. He picked up a glass of juice with his right hand that could still move, and just when Orgrim was about to take a few sips, my hawk suddenly turned his back to him and said, I am also a member of the Warhammer Pirates, right? No need to say thank you next time this happens again. Orgrim took 2 sips of juice first, and then said, I just feel that I am a little sorry for bringing you into such a dangerous place as soon as you joined. My hawk still didn't look back, and said very calmly, as you said, I practice swordsmanship to fight against the world's heroes, and use this as a whetstone to become the strongest in swordsmanship. In this situation, if you don't have the courage to take action, how can you aspire to be the strongest? You're right, Orgrim nodded in approval. My hawk didn't respond to him, and was still fishing leisurely. On the other side, Beckman looked at Orgrim, then at my hawk, and his mouth couldn't help but he put on a smile, didn't mind his own business, lowered his head and continued reading. Just when Orgrim was a little bored, Gangplank on the observation deck shouted, Master Hammer, today's newspaper is here, there is news about the Chambord Islands, do you want to read it? Aren't you talking nonsense? Get it quickly. Orgrim shouted excitedly. Not long after, Gangplank climbed down from the observation deck, holding a newspaper in his hand, and ran over. Orgrim also, without talking nonsense to him, he took the newspaper and started reading it. The title of the news of the world was still a bit exaggerated. The pirates' ambitions may not stop at the New World. Then there was a report about the Shampoo Islands. The great pirate Golden Lion Shiki and the beast Kaido appeared in the Shampoo Islands at the same time, and started a fierce battle with the Navy Admiral Black Arm Zifa and the Buddha Sengoku. Finally, an island on the Chambord Islands was completely destroyed, and the battle came to an end. Navy support arrived, and CP-0 masters also participated. Finally, Shiki and Kaido evacuated the Shampoo Islands. Theoretically, this is considered a victory for the Navy, but it seems like there are no fruits of victory. The reason why the two admirals appeared on the Chambord Islands has not been exposed. The reason why Shiji and Kaido, the two big bosses of the New World, appeared on the Shampoo Islands has not been exposed. If it were Whitebeard, Roger, etc., one could still guess that they were going in and out of the New World. But Kaido has always been alone, so he doesn't need a boat at all, so he doesn't need coding. As for Shiji, he is called a flying pirate, and he still needs coding to enter and exit the New World. Isn't this a joke? Precisely because we can't find the reason why the four big guys took action on the Chambord Islands, there are a lot of speculations and conspiracy theories in the world now. For example, the Navy has withdrawn from the struggle for hegemony in the New World, while the pirates are aggressive, as if their ambitions do not want to be limited to the New World, but want to penetrate it. Shiki and Kaido he came out to test the Navy's bottom line. Not to mention, under the current situation, many people think that this kind of inference is very possible. For a while, people are panicked. People on the sea are afraid that the chaos in the New World will gradually expand to the entire world. Do you have our latest bounty or something? Orgrim looked at it and suddenly asked. Gangplank shook his head and said, nothing has changed. It seems that the Navy has no intention of exposing us. What does this mean? It shows that they have not given up their targeted plan on the Shampoo Islands. Orgrim murmured softly. Now it is being promoted that the two admirals of the Navy appeared in the Chambord Islands in order to capture Orgrim. Shiki and Kaido may have taken action here because of this. That is tantamount to it is promoting Orgrim's reputation to the whole world. It is of no benefit to the Navy at all. The Warring States General believes that even if Orgrim and the others run away, they will still have to return to the Chambord Islands for coding in the future. Otherwise, how can we enter the New World? At that time, I don't believe that Shiji and Kaido will still be able to rescue them. After Orgrim is captured and the truth is announced, it will be a different scene. What will increase is the power of the Navy, rather than the power of pirates. Therefore, regarding the Warhammer pirates, the world government and the Navy have chosen not to mention it in a tacit agreement, assuming that there is no such person as Orgrim. Looking at the newspaper, Kaido is so domineering. Orgrim also murmured with some emotion, good man, could it be that I have always had some prejudice against Kaido? In fact, he is a good person who does good deeds every day. Shiji will take action to save him, and Orgrim can still understand it. After all, he is a close friend. Kaido came over and broke in. Orgrim really can't understand it. He can only think of him as a kind pirate. In fact, Orgrim had no idea that Kaido admired him very much and wanted to be with him. It just happened that this time, Kaido wanted to come out to find Orgrim because he felt that he was the most valuable. The possible place to appear was the Shampoo Islands. He actually met him. When he saw that Orgrim, whom he admired very much, was being bullied by the Navy, the righteous Kaido took action without saying a word. His calculations were also very good. Xiang, I will save your life now. When we meet again in the future, I invite you to come on board. Can you have the nerve to refuse? Even if you refuse, you will not be embarrassed to be my enemy in the future, right? Maybe there will be opportunities for cooperation in the future. Not once, but twice. Maybe one day, Orgrim will join his banner? As for Shiji, Kaido has already regarded him as a competitor who came to steal Orgrim. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 103. Admiralty Marine Ford. At this time, the Warring States General was sitting in his office, with some bandages wrapped around his body, and his face looked very bad. Because this guy Garp is laughing at him wantonly. Ha 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 ha, what's going on with you? Was he beaten like this by that Orgrim? Garp asked with a big smile. Just after running back from the New World, he discovered that Senguo had messed up something again. Garp, the cutthroat man, came to trouble with a smile. Senguo cursed with a very bad look on his face. Said Garp, "You bastard, don't make sarcastic comments here. My injuries were caused during the fight with Kaido and Shiki and have nothing to do with that Orgrim. Stop making excuses. I heard what Jun said. You were knocked out by that Orgrim hammer and you were seriously injured." Garp laughed and joked. Sengoku's face darkened, and he turned to look at Jun. Jun also turned his head away with some embarrassment, and cursed secretly to Garp, "Everything is really messed up. Chuan, don't tell him these secrets next time." On the other side, General Zifa was also holding a teacup in his hand. He also had some minor injuries on his body, but nothing serious. I wonder if the Warring States period was too dazzling on the battlefield. The shining golden light attracted firepower. So much so. He, a black-armed general, had no significant presence at all. Shiki and Kaido were all staring at the Sengoku guy, so Zifa and Jun didn't suffer anything too serious. Injury. On the other hand, Sakazuki, because he was too strong, received intensive care and is now living in a Navy nursing home. This time can't be said to be a failure. Garp, don't laugh. The strategic goal is to prevent the Warhammer pirates from entering the New World. Now that they have been forced out of the Shampoo Islands, they cannot enter the New World. There is still a chance. Next time, Whitebeard and that Charlotte Lingling can't come to save him, right? Zifa took a sip of tea and said. Garp didn't go too far. Everyone could accept a proper joke. If he held onto it, it would be a bit hurtful. So he nodded and then asked, the newspapers say that Shiji and Kaido may have other purposes. What do you think? What on earth are they here for? The Warring States General also felt a little strange when he heard this. After thinking for a while, he said Shiji is fine. It can be confirmed that he is going for those people in Orgrim. After all, there is some connection between them. Orgrim, the sister of Beckman, is a cotter under Shiji. At the same time, General Zifa also spoke. As for Kaido, he came out of nowhere. He had no idea what he was here for or what his purpose was. He started fighting with us without saying a word. In the past 2 days, the Sengoku Navy headquarters also focused on investigating the issues between the Warhammer pirates and the Beast pirates. They found that there was no connection at all, so they couldn't understand Kaido's thoughts at all. Just at this time, Kyuzan, who was sitting aside, said, "This guy Kaido, it's not like he has a brain problem for a day or two. Even if he does such strange things, it's not incomprehensible." As soon as Kyuzan said this, the others were stunned for a moment. Yes, Kaido is mentally ill. This bastard does such inexplicable things not just once or twice, but sometimes when he drinks too much. A man came to Marineford to cause trouble. He was caught 3 or 5 times just to catch him. This sudden commotion on the Shampoo Islands seems a bit strange, but if the person involved is Kaido, it seems that there is no need to look for any reasons. Okay, don't worry about this. Didn't the people from the intelligence department say that? It has been observed that both Shiki and Kaido returned to the New World. Garp waved his hand and said. Then, several big guys chatted about other topics. The layout of the Shampoo Islands will continue. Maybe after they recover from their injuries, those bastards from Orgrim will land again. We cannot relax our vigilance against them and must keep them out of the New World, the Warring States General said in a deep voice. It is necessary to raise the threat level of that guy. He has awakened the Overlord Color Haki, General Zifa also added. Garp was stunned for a moment after hearing this. This was the first time he heard about this matter. Overlord Color, Garp murmured, not knowing what he was thinking. But after all, this is all news within the Navy. There is no unnecessary action to the outside world. Everyone also decided unanimously not to give Orgrim and others. The man raised the bounty and dealt with it in a low-key manner. On the other side, Kuzan asked Jun sitting next to him, is that guy getting stronger again? Jun was silent for a moment after hearing this, and then said it's a little bit better than last time. I even think that if there were not the Warring States General and Teacher Zifa this time, and only one person was in charge, maybe that guy able to break through head-on and escape. Although Jun basically didn't fight Orgrim this time, judging from what Sakaski learned, Orgrim's strength has surpassed the rising stars of the Navy. Jun, there is reason to believe that he is no longer Orgrim's opponent. Kuzan nodded secretly. During this time, his strength has also increased a lot, and he was still thinking about whether he could compete with Orgrim. It's a competition. Now, he feels a little unsure. The equally popular Jorakol Mihawk also joined the Warhammer Pirates, Kuzan asked softly again. Jun gritted his teeth when he mentioned this matter. If it weren't for Mihawk, they might have destroyed Orgrim without waiting for Shiki and Kaido to appear. That's right, I don't know we did these two bastards get together, Jun said with some annoyance. Obviously. Mihawk had a pretty good impression in the Navy headquarters before. Although he was classified as a pirate, he was not a particularly evil person. Even among the Navy, there were even regulations. It's a plan to trick an Mihawk into trying to see if he can join the Navy or something. And this guy, who was clearly hanging out in the New World before, somehow ended up in the first half of the Grand Line and joined Warhammer Pirates. Did you fight him? How does it feel? Kuzan asked again. His strength is pretty good at the moment, not as perverted as Orgrim, but he has potential. It's hard to say, but I always feel that guy will become a powerful figure in the future. Jun thought for a while and said softly. Kuzan fell silent after hearing this. After a long time, Kuzan said leisurely, it seems that the Warhammer Pirates have become stronger again, we really can't let them enter the New World. After a while, Kuzan gloated again and asked, that guy Sakaski was sent to a nursing home. Jun also smiled when he heard this and said, that's right, what, do you want to mock him? But I mind if you don't do this. He is a powder keg now and will explode at any time. Moreover, most of his injuries are caused by Kaido and have little to do with Orgrim. Kuzan waved his hand and said, I'm not that bad, but even if it doesn't have much to do with it, it still has something to do with Orgrim, right? Among us, only Porisalino and Giaja are left. What a loss if you pass Orgrim. Is this a good thing? Jun smiled and said. Of course not, Kuzan said firmly, but soon he smiled and said, but don't you think, are you feeling more mentally balanced? Jun was stunned for a moment, touched his delicate chin, smacked his lips and said, it seems to be a little balanced. So, I still have to thank that bastard Orgrim. If he is imprisoned in Impelton later, you can go and thank him. Kuzan joked with a smile. It makes sense. It would be best for me to lock him in with my own hands and then arrange a more comfortable private room for him. Jun also laughed. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 104. New World, Shiji's ship. At this time, Shiji was sitting on his domineering chair, holding a wine glass in his hand, drinking happily. But not far in front of him, a muscular loli was complaining to him about something. Admiral, why don't you just bring my brothers back? Now that the Navy is targeting them like this, how can they enter the New World? Especially now that the main forces of the Navy have withdrawn to Marineford, it is easier to free up their hands. Kuranda Neiman muttered with great dissatisfaction. Shiji shook his head helplessly, and then said, Neiman, I promised you to help them once, but I never said that I would help them enter the New World. no matter what the reason is, no matter whether the Navy pays attention to it or targets it, this is the path they choose. If they really can't enter the New World, it proves that they are nothing more than this. Admiral, do you admit that they have great potential? Neiman asked again. Of course I have to admit that both Orgrim and Beckman are very good, better than 99% of the people on the sea, otherwise the Navy would not target them like that. When I was young, no two admirals have ever attacked me at the same time. Shiji said with a smile. That's it? My two brothers are both very good and have great potential. Now they are encountering difficulties. If you, Admiral, can help them get through it, the future will be limitless. You don't even know how to settle this account? Neiman said angrily. Shiji was stunned for a moment, then laughed and cursed. You bastard girl, do you dare to say that I am wrong now? Neiman also smiled awkwardly after hearing this, and said a little coyly, I didn't say anything bad about the Admiral, I just gave you some advice. Admiral, you have a broad mind and ambitions for the world. It's not like you can't listen to good advice. People. Listening to Neiman's rainbow fart, Shiji laughed again. I don't know if it was particularly to his liking, or maybe the presence of outstanding newcomers like Orgrim and Beckman in the distance had a subconscious influence on Shiki. Anyway, the more Shiji looked at the little girl Neiman, the more he liked her. He almost regarded her as his own girl. In addition, Neiman was indeed very impressive, although not as eye-catching as Orgrim and Beckman. But she also grew up very quickly and never disappointed Shiji, so Shiji still prefers her. Otherwise, if it were any other subordinate, who would dare to say in front of Shiji that he doesn't know how to settle accounts? Shiji smiling and waving his hands, he said seriously, Neiman, whether you admit it or not, luck is part of strength. Although Orgrim and Beckman are good, if they have bad luck, they can't blame others. In the end, whether they can enter the New World still depends on themselves. I have done what I should do, and the rest is for them to work hard. After all, they are still the Warhammer pirates, not my subordinates, Shiki. Neiman is not the kind of guy who doesn't know what's important. Seeing that Shiji said it seriously, she didn't continue to pester her. This is what Shiji likes about her, and it's also the reason why Shiji can tolerate her being a little presumptuous. So Admiral, are my brothers really okay? Man asked a little worried again. Shiji smiled and said it's okay. After all, I took action personally, but I was also seriously injured. It will take 3 to 5 months to recuperate. Shiji didn't have the nerve to mention Kaido. In fact, if Kaido hadn't suddenly appeared at that time, Shiji really couldn't be sure. After all, Sengoku and Zifa are not easy to mess with. Neiman got it now after Shiji's affirmative reply. Although he was a little worried about his brother's injuries, he didn't ask any more questions. Shiji nodded with satisfaction upon seeing this. This little girl's position is still very stable, knowing that she is a member of the Sky Pirates. A person, not just the sister of the two Orgrim brothers. Well, you don't have to worry about anything. Isn't that Norman Nightingale on their ship? I heard Dr. Indigo say that he is a very powerful doctor with world-class medical technology, and they will be fine. Shiji smiled and comforted Neiman. After a short pause, he continued, moreover, for us pirates, for the strong, every hardship is the beginning of sublimation. The stronger they are, the more failures they have encountered. They are still young and nothing is impossible. On the contrary, this is also a good thing for them. Whether it's Shiji or the Sengoku Admiral and other Navy bosses. They all think that Orgrim and others will rest for a while before going back to the Shampoo Islands. I don't think they can enter the New World so quickly. Something like that. But in fact, at this time Orgrim and his deep-sea overlord Black Narwhal are almost arriving at Murloc Island. If they wait for Orgrim to show up in the New World, not I know what kind of surprised expressions the Warring States General and others will have. Where is the promised Shampoo Islands? Why didn't you come? After a few days of rest, Orgrim, who has a strong self-healing physique, has recovered to a full extent. 8. On the other hand, Beckman still has a triangle scarf hanging on his arm. This unimaginable contrast has made Beckman very unbalanced. He often murmurs words like enviable these days. And Mihawk also understood Orgrim's abnormality in a truly intuitive sense. Mihawk saw it very far. With Orgrim's physique, in a fight, as long as he can't be beaten to death, he will fight to death. Every time he survives, the benefit to him is a qualitative improvement. This improvement is not only in strength, but also in mentality, confidence, etc. Of course, for AO Mihawk was also very envious of Grimm's abnormal self-healing power, but he didn't say it, and still wanted to maintain his persona of a cold little prince. Orgrim was standing on the bow deck of the ship. On the boat, he was observing the deep-sea scenery in the distance. At this time, he could already see the Fishman Island gifted by Yangshuive. The closer we got, the more frequently the deep-sea creatures around the Fishman Island appeared. Some deep-sea fish, its size is not worse than that of the Neptune type. "Captain, that's Fishman Island." Vincent, a handsome Fishman tribe's strong man, pointed at the Fishman Island with a smile and said, "Are you excited to return to your hometown?" Orgrim asked with a smile. Vincent waved his hand and said, "How long have I been out? There is nothing exciting. On the contrary, I am more looking forward to the fact that we can enter the new world. I heard that it is very interesting there." "Ha ha 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 ha, this is all thanks to you, otherwise I would still have a headache. How could I go to the Chambord Islands to secretly code?" Orgrim patted Vincent on the shoulder, laughed and said, "Ha ha ha, I am a shipwright. Leave all questions about ships to me," Vincent said with a smile. Soon, the huge battleship approached Fishman Island, and Vincent also introduced Fishman Island to everyone. "The port we are going to land at now is called Coral Hill. It is one of the important ports of Fishman Island. It is very prosperous. The humans on the sea do business with us here," Vincent said with a smile. After a short pause, he added, "By the way, without the leadership of compatriots, theoretically speaking, pirates cannot enter Fishman Island from here." "From where?" Beckman asked curiously. "Ship's graveyard, High Season. I was doing research there not long ago," Vincent explained. "So we have benefited from you this time?" Orgrim joked with a smile. "Coral Hill is indeed very prosperous and very rich. The treasures on the sea seem not worth mentioning here. Black pearls as big as fists and magnificent coral groups are not worth mentioning among humans. In society, those are treasures that are robbed. But here, they seem to be just simple decorations that can be seen everywhere." Looking at this scene, Orgrim thought about the bland interior of his ship and touched his chin. He smacked his lips and said, "Maybe it would be good to decorate here. I think you guys are really good. I feel like the number of flowers will be fixed at 5 times a day anyway. Thank you for your support." A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 105. In a mermaid tavern in Coral Hill, Orgrim and others were sitting inside and drinking happily. "Beckman, you can't drink too much, it's not good for your recovery," Nightingale warned Beckman like a housekeeper. Beckman hung his broken arm and said helplessly, "Why didn't you tell Orgrim this? His physical fitness is extraordinary. Can you compare with him? A few days ago, he looked like he was about to die, but now he is in full swing," Nightingale said angrily. Orgrim on the other side ignored the two of them. Instead, his eyes kept shining and he looked around in the tavern. It was not for other reasons, but because there were too many beauties. Beautiful. The mermaid ladies were walking around in the tavern, looking like sexy poster girls. Her figure was absolutely top-notch, not one of them was out of shape, and not one of them was ugly. Everyone looked like a pretty girl, and they were dressed very well. Attracting attention, Orgrim discovered that shells are also very valuable. For example, they can not only protect real pearls, but also artificial pearls. Hanging on my chest, that amorous feeling, alas, I can't bring it up. Heaven on earth, Orgrim smacked his lips and murmured. My hawk glanced at the beautiful mermaid girl Orgrim was staring at, and then said, "Is it so attractive? Unlike you, a man who is destined to spend his whole life with a sword, I like beautiful women very much. It's such a pity. All the men on our boat are tall and thick," Orgrim said with some regret. Then he picked up the wine glass and stopped paying attention to those beautiful young ladies. Although he likes to appreciate beauty, he is not that horny yet. This kind of thing has always been about mutual consent. Of course, if given the chance, Orgrim would not mind using his few Baileys to help those beautiful sisters who are struggling with life in the streets. People, in this world, just need to help each other. Let the world be filled with love and warmth. If I think about it carefully, I realize that being a pirate is really a disadvantage. Vincent, I heard that the boss of your Dragon Palace city has a good relationship with Whitebeard. Orgrim took a sip of wine and asked. Vincent is a very handsome guy among the strong men of the mermaid tribe. Even in human aesthetics, he is also a handsome guy. And he is handsome. It is very flavorful, combining the intellectual temperament of a scholar with the heroic spirit of a shipwright. Judging from his appearance, he should be able to rank third on the ship. Of course, Orgrim naturally ranked him first. The second one was reluctantly given to my hawk who could threaten him. The third one was Vincent, and as for Beckman, anyway, he is not handsome enough now. After hearing Orgrim's inquiry, Vincent smiled and said, "I heard that there is such a thing. It seems that every time the Whitebeard pirates come, King Neptune will hold a banquet to entertain him, and he asks thanks to Whitebeard. There are very few pirates causing trouble on Fishman Island. Although Vincent is a local, to put it bluntly, he is just a bastard. He does research in the forest of the sea and gives it to the pirates. Coding, repairing a boat or something. He is not a big shot in Fishman Island, let alone a noble. So he has no connection with Dragon Palace City, and Neptune probably doesn't even know there is a person like him. Therefore, he had heard about these things, but he didn't know the details." Orgrim nodded. "Indeed, the security on Fishman Island is still good now, far less chaotic than imagined. When Fishman Island really became chaotic, probably a few years later, Roger started the era of great pirates, and the whole world fell into madness. A large number of new pirates are pouring into Fishman Island. These guys are just starting out, and those who can get to Fishman Island are considered to have some skills or are lucky. Of course he is extremely arrogant and arrogant. What does Whitebeard's name mean? What's more, it's just a good relationship, but it doesn't really become his territory. At that time, Fishman Island was in trouble. It was constantly bullied by pirates and kidnapped countless beautiful mermaid girls. Until Newgate personally came to Fishman Island and cleaned up all the pirates on the island. Then he gave his flag to Neptune, and since then, Fishman Island has been under Whitebeard's flag. Since then, Fishman Island has finally gone through that disaster and has become much calmer. It's ridiculous to say that Fishman Island is also one of the participating countries of the world government, and it is near the Marine headquarters Marineford and the Holy Land Marijoya. In the end, not only was the world government unable to protect Fishman Island, it ended up relying on pirates for support. But thanks to the world government and the Navy headquarters, they ignored Fishman Island. Therefore, Fishman Island can be regarded as one of the few safe areas on the entire Grand Line. Here, there is basically no need to worry about provoking the Navy or anything. The Navy doesn't care about coming here at all. I can finally relax here. Marines rarely come to Fishman Island, right? Orgrim asked. Vincent nodded and said, "Although I have been here before, It's really rare. Often I don't see him once throughout the year. Why is that? Beckman asked curiously. Vincent smiled and explained because the risk is too high. When you come to Fishman Island, you have to dive 10,000 meters under the sea. In this process, it is very dangerous. Once coated, broken, no matter how great your abilities are, as long as you can't breathe in the sea, you will be in trouble, and the Navy is not like pirates. It can only enter and exit the New World from here. The Navy can enter and exit the New World from the safer Marijoya, and there are also 3 naval bases that can be dispatched at the entrance of the New World. Therefore, the Navy rarely comes to Fishman Island. The privileged class, Orgrim smacked his lips and complained. After several people chatted about this topic for a while, they talked about other things. You must have made a fortune this time, right? With Vincent, a local acquaintance of yours, we have packed a lot of specialties from the sea from the capital of 7 waters, Beckman asked with a smile. Vincent also nodded happily and said not only the things on Fishman Island are treasures on the sea, but some things on the sea can also be sold at high prices on Fishman Island. We have enough goods this time. You can definitely make a lot of money. The goods that Orgrim and others transported from the capital of 7 waters were actually nothing special, just some second-hand artillery, firearms, etc. purchased from the scrapyard. Regardless of the fact that these things are nothing on the sea, as long as they are not the latest models of the Navy, there are many in the black market. Otherwise, where would there be so many cannons with so many pirates in the world? But on Fishman Island, there is a great need, because the cannon-making technology on Fishman Island is not very good, and arms are also very scarce. Most of them use cold weapons, such as tridents and machetes. The city defense is not that good either. Every time some artillery and arms are smuggled to Fishman Island, they can be sold for a big price. Orgrim and the others brought a lot of these gadgets with them, hoping to make a fortune on Fishman Island. After all, with Vincent here, he can't rob his hometown, right? That's so unethical. By the way, let's take advantage of the cheap prices here to renovate the boat. If we can really make a lot of money, we can buy more treasures from the bottom of the sea and take them to the New World. We can make a lot of money again. Look at how big our boat is. I've been doing 10 times more than others in one trip, Orgrim laughed and said. Ha ha ha, leave it to me. I still know a lot of reliable guys here on Fishman Island. There is no problem at all in decorating. As for our goods, I will go to Fishman Street to find people I know. Let's see if we can sell it directly to Dragon Palace City at a large price. Vincent said with a smile. All subsequent matters will be handled by Vincent. It has to be said that it is much more convenient to have a local acquaintance. If Orgrim and the others are doing things by themselves, with their due to my status, it is impossible to bring business to Dragon Palace City. This is our last stop before entering the New World. After we make a lot of money, we will ask the brothers to take a rest and relax. Once we enter the New World, it will be another journey. Orgrim patted Beckman on the shoulder and said. Clear. Beckman also nodded in response. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 106. There is a deep gap between Fishman Island and the world on the sea. The Warhammer pirates came to Fishman Island openly and stayed for a few days. However, no news was received from the sea. Whether it was the Navy or the pirates, they all thought that Orgrim and others were still recuperating and looking for an opportunity to go to the Shampoo Islands. Similarly, the people on Fishman Island don't know much about the Warhammer pirates. Orgrim was on the island and asked the crew to restrain themselves and not embarrass Vincent or cause any trouble. So compared with other pirates, the Warhammer pirates have a pretty good reputation on Fishman Island these days. At this time, in the magnificent Dragon Palace city on Fishman Island, King Neptune was chatting with a cute fat blue man, looking a little surprised. 3,000 muskets? 300 artillery pieces? Real or fake? King Neptune asked in surprise. The fat blue man standing in front of him was none other than Jinbi, the current captain of the Ryago Castle Guards. Jinbi is still a civil servant. In theory, he belongs to the world government. After all, although Ryago Castle is isolated from the world, it is still a member of the world government's franchise countries. If you really want to make a comparison, the biggest boss on Jinbi's head is not King Neptune, but the world governments. The Commander-in-Chief of the Army. Legally speaking, the Commander-in-Chief of the Army has the power to mobilize all the armies under the name of the world government, including of course the armies in the hands of various participating countries. It's just that Jinbei's path will be narrow in the future, and he will follow his elder brother Fei. Shere Tiger became a pirate, and his highlight moment was probably when he became King Shishibukai. But now, he is still a serious civil servant, the kind with a staff, and he can compete with Neptune. The king of the country spoke up. Even the relationship between the two is very good. Neptune has no heirs. After all, he can be friends with pirates. He is still a famous pirate like Whitebeard. It can be seen that he doesn't care that much about his identity or anything like that. It's true, Your Majesty, have you heard of Master Tom? Jinbei asked. Neptune nodded and responded, of course I have heard that he was the most powerful shipbuilder in our Fishman Island in the past, but didn't he leave the Fishman Island a few years ago? Went to the sea? It seems to be the capital of Seven Waters. Yes, that's him. He is now a well-known figure in the shipbuilding industry. Many people say he is the world's #1 shipbuilder, Jinbei said with a smile. Is he already so powerful? Neptune murmured with some emotion. Well, this time it has something to do with him. His younger brother, Vincent Dan, is also an excellent shipwright and a scholar. He has been studying some things in the forest of the sea. Not long ago, he left the fish island of Man, went to the capital of Seven Waters, and now he is back. Entrusted by Master Tom, he joined the Warhammer Pirates and became a pirate. This time, they brought the things I just mentioned. I wanted to find a buyer who could eat them all. When I was in Fishman Street, we had some friendship, so he found me and asked me to ask His Majesty if you are interested in this, Jinbei quickly explained. Pirates? Neptune smacked his lips, but he didn't mind anything. Instead, he asked, is there nothing wrong with the goods, not some junk? Jinbei smiled and introduced the guns are all brand new, and the artillery is mostly second-hand, and there are some new ones, but Vincent guarantees that they are all usable, and there are no damaged ones to be used as replacements. Neptune nodded after hearing this, and then said with these things, it can indeed greatly enhance the defense power of our Fishman Island. I am very interested, what's their price? Maybe it's because Vincent is a local. The price is not very high, a little 10% more than the market price here, Jinbei said with a smile. The market price of Fishman Island is already 5 or 6 times that of the sea. Orgrim and the others added another 10% to their asking price. But Neptune said happily, it seems this Warhammer pirates are not bad guys. For such a large amount of goods, the price they ask for is not much, but they are willing to sell it to us cheaply. Okay, we want all of Ryago Castle. Jinbei also smiled awkwardly after hearing Neptune's evaluation. The Warhammer pirates are not bad guys? Neptune seemed to notice Jinbei's awkward smile and asked strangely, what's wrong? Ahem, what, Your Majesty, have you never heard of the Warhammer pirates? In fact, they are quite famous on the sea, Jinbei explained. Oh? Can you tell me about it? Neptune asked with great interest. Their captain, Hosgarot Orgrim, has a bounty of up to 320 million belly, and this bounty was placed more than half a year ago. Although nothing has been reported recently, his strength he must be stronger. There may not be anyone on our Fishman Island who can be his opponent, Jinbei introduced. 320 million, Neptune was surprised. A reward of this price cannot be underestimated no matter where it is placed. Are you not his opponent? Neptune thought for a while and then asked. In his opinion, Jinbei was already very powerful. Most of the pirates who came to Fishman Island to cause trouble were dealt with by Jinbei. He called him the number one in Fishman Island. A warrior is not an exaggeration. Jinbei waved his hands in embarrassment and said, I definitely can't do it. Then before Neptune could speak, Jinbei said in a funny tone, moreover, that Captain Orgrim also has a very interesting name on the sea. He is called the enemy of mankind. Neptune was stunned for a moment, then he laughed and said, ha 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 ha, public enemy of mankind? It's a very interesting name. Maybe he can become a good friend of our Fishman Island. At this stage, Fishman Island has a very bad relationship with the humans on the sea. Neptune is still a racist. He has no intention of establishing a good relationship with the human society on the sea. This attitude lasted until Princess Otohim died unexpectedly, and Neptune inherited Princess Otohim's will and began to devote himself to building good relations with the society on the sea. Originally, Neptune was a little prejudiced towards human pirates like Orgrim, but once he heard that he was a public enemy of mankind, he felt as if he had found a friend, and his favorability increased greatly. What they mean is that part of this transaction will be Bailey, and the other part can be the specialties of our Fishman Island. Jinbei smiled again and said, ha 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 ha, okay, they are very sincere to us, and we can't mistreat our good friends like this. Jinbei, you can go ahead and handle this matter. We will give them an extra 30% for the part that is traded with special products. It is our wish, Neptune said very boldly. Yes, Your Majesty, Jinbei nodded in response. Then the two chatted about the Warhammer pirates. It seemed that Neptune was still very interested in the Warhammer pirates. After a while, Jinbei asked, Your Majesty, do you want to see them? Neptune's eyes lit up, but soon he shook his head and said, forget it, gone. I, the king, have a good relationship with the pirate Whitebeard. It is already very criticized in the eyes of ordinary people. If it has anything to do with the Warhammer pirates, it will be easier for people to gossip, so let's forget it. Jinbei also nodded and said nothing more. In fact, it is indeed the case. Now Whitebeard is not the protective umbrella of Fishman Island. Neptune is friends with him. Many people think there is something wrong with him and they gossip a lot. It wasn't until something happened later and Whitebeard took up the banner of Fishman Island that these idiots were grateful. I have to say, it was really ironic. It also reflected that in this era, the reputation of pirates is indeed not very good. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 107. Under Vincent's arrangement, the deal between the Warhammer pirates and Ryago Castle progressed smoothly. Dragon Palace City has a lot of money. After the inspection, they were very satisfied with the goods provided by Orgrim and the others, and settled the bill in full without saying a word. Just from Bailey, Orgrim made more than 1 billion in this wave, not to mention a large number of undersea treasures, such as black pearls, corals, gems, etc., which were loaded onto the ship in boxes and boxes. If these things are taken to the sea, even if they can only be sold on the black market, at least 2 billion belly will be obtained. Therefore, putting aside the cost, Orgrim basically made a net profit of 3 billion belly just from this trip to Fishman Island. This almost stopped Orgrim from deciding to change his career. What kind of pirate do you think you are? Wouldn't it be nice to be a smuggler? Of course, although 3 billion belly is a lot, Orgrim and others also have a lot of expenses. There are more than 2,000 mouths waiting to make a fortune, as well as supplies every time, and some other miscellaneous things. After experiencing the luxury of the great nobles at the auction in the Chambord Islands, Orgrim is now considered a high-class person with an open mind, and is not really excited to the point of being unable to sleep. Apart from anything else, in the field of pirates, the richest ones in the future should be the big mom pirates. Charlotte Lingling, this dead old woman, still has a very good vision for development and a very powerful strategy. She can be regarded as the leader among pirates. She is now constantly constructing the concept of Wongwo Totland. In the future, Totland's territory expanded to the size of a sea area, and countless islands of various sizes formed this pirate country. The economic benefits brought about by this can be imagined. Taking the concept of a country as a country, Totland's basic market is as big as a sea area, and the overall economy is only a fraction of tens of billions or hundreds of billions. Of course, whether this can be realized is another matter. At this time, in the port of Coral Hill, aboard the deep-sea overlord, the Black Narwhal, Orgrim was watching a large group of strong fishermen doing renovations under the leadership of Vincent. After stepping on the deck in the captain's cabin, Orgrim looked a little surprised. "Are you really using a layer of black pearls?" "I was just joking, there's no need to take it seriously, right?" "How much does it cost?" Orgrim asked with some emotion. Vincent said with a smile, "Not only is it paved here, it can be said that all the rooms reserved for cotters are paved." "Damn it, aren't we about to become paupers?" "Is it so luxurious?" Orgrim said in surprise. On the other side, Jinbe, the fat blue man, smiled and said, "Captain Orgrim, you may have some misunderstanding about our Murloc Island in this aspect. In fact, the black pearl decoration flooring is very popular among the aristocrats of Fishman Island. We also have a complete process, because these black pearls are basically defective products. Every year, there will be a lot of such waste on Fishman Island, and eventually they become some decorative materials, even paving the ground like cobblestones." "That's right, Captain, this thing doesn't cost much. Although it looks like a black pearl on the surface, in fact, the part buried below the deck is probably not in good condition. It cannot be sold as a treasure, it can only be used as a treasure. Used for construction and decoration materials." Vincent also explained with a smile. "You Fishman Island's routines are really deep. Forget it, I, an amateur, won't be here to give random directions. I'll leave it to you, Vincent," Orgrim said with a smile. Then he looked at Jinbe next to him. This guy could be regarded as the agent of Ryago Castle, responsible for this business. After the business was over, Jinbe seemed to be very fond of Orgrim. If he has a good impression, he will come and chat with Orgrim when he has nothing to do. It can be seen that Jinbe is also very curious about the world on the sea, and he also likes to collect newspapers on the sea to learn about the world on the sea. Some current events. What surprised Orgrim is that the news of the world has not yet opened up its market to Fishman Island. In fact, most people who want to know about things on the sea on Fishman Island rely on pirates and newspapers and news brought by smugglers. This gap is really deep. Jinbe, if you are so interested in the sea, why not go to sea with me? I think you are also very powerful. How about approving your formation of a special Fishman Special Operations Team? If you become the captain, you will become a cotter with this opening. I am very sincere." Orgrim brought Jinbe to the deck, and the two sat and chatted. Jinbe smiled, waved his hand and said, "I am indeed very interested in the sea, but I also have my own responsibilities. If I leave now, what should I do on Fishman Island? Talented people have emerged from generation to generation, and each has been leading the way for hundreds of years. If you don't give up your position, how do you know that there are no other powerful guys on Fishman Island?" Orgrim said with a smile. Jinbe looked at Orgrim in surprise. He didn't expect that this big and thick pirate seems to be quite educated. This sentence sounds very emotional. Think about it carefully. It seems to be, what kind of poetry is the unique culture of the flower country called? Jinbei thought about it for a while and couldn't remember it. After all, he didn't know much about the flower country. In the deep sea, having such knowledge like him was already considered a blessing. It's amazing. However, Jinbei still rejected Orgrim's invitation. Orgrim didn't mind the rejection. Instead, he promised that if Jinbei wanted to go to sea in the future, just contact him and he would welcome him at any time. The two even exchanged words. The signal wave of the phone bug will also facilitate future contact. I have an older brother who often walks on the sea and is a great adventurer. His name is Fisher Tiger. If Captain Orgrim meets him on the sea in the future, please take care of him. Jinbei chatted about Tiger. Orgrim nodded. He was also very interested in this ruthless man who would dare to burn Marijoya in the future. If we really meet him, we must have a drink. After that, Orgrim, Rem and Jinbei talked about other things. Anyway, they felt that they got along very well. Even if they couldn't be partners for the time being, there was no problem in being friends. When it got dark, Jinbei said goodbye, and Orgrim didn't say anything. Do you really want to create a special operations team of the fishmen? At some point, Beckman walked up behind Orgrim and asked. Orgrim was stunned for a moment, then smacked his lips and said, "It's quite interesting, isn't it? The fishmen have an innate advantage in the sea, they are a race loved by the god of the ocean. It's pretty good." Beckman also nodded and said, "It's a pity that Jinbei is not interested in coming with us. I think he is a very qualified person and his future is limitless." Orgrim said with some regret. "Ha ha 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 ha, everyone is still young, maybe there will be opportunities in the future, right?" Beckman laughed and comforted. "Yes, there will still be opportunities in the future." Orgrim nodded. He didn't plan to stay in Fishman Island for too long. After the decoration was completed, Orgrim decided to set off. By the way, this is one of the gateway islands to and from the New World after all. There is a lot of information about the New World, right? Be careful these 2 days and buy some information, so as not to go to the New World and get a black eye. Orgrim warned. "Do you still need to remind me of this?" "I've bought them all," Beckman said with a smile. Just when Orgrim and the others were resting on Fishman Island and preparing to enter the New World. At this time, a minor incident also occurred in the New World, with Roger the pirate. Group related. According to rumors, the Roger pirates secretly sneaked into the territory of the Big Mom pirates and stole a very important thing from Charlotte Lingling from Cake Island. Of course, there is a lot of news, no one believes it. After all, as of now, Charlotte Lingling's rank is obviously not as high as that of a top boss like Roger. Why does Roger want to steal her things? Can't he just rob her and be done with it? But in fact, Roger is very ill now. If you can, try not to do anything. Besides, it's not shameful for a pirate to steal something. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 108. Roger's news did not attract too many people's attention. After all, it is very normal for pirates to fight among themselves, and the Roger pirates did not fight with the Big Mom pirates. They just stole something and ran away. How big a deal could it be? But in the eyes of a thoughtful person, this is a question worth pondering. And this caring person is none other than Golden Lion Shiji. If we say that at this stage, Kaido is obsessed with Orgrim, it can be said that Shiji is more obsessed with Roger than Kaido is with Orgrim. Shiji has been very unruly in his life, and he doesn't even pay much attention to his former captain Rox. He doesn't have a good attitude toward Whitebeard either. But I admire Roger so much. It was obvious that both Roger and Garp were the main culprits who crushed their Rox pirates, but Shiki didn't care about it at all. Roger was invited to join the Sky Pirates many times. And this kind of invitation is not an invitation to cotters, but an invitation to be on an equal footing with Roger. Yes, Shiji wanted to join forces with Roger from the bottom of his heart, and he admired him to the extent that he was willing to share the world with Roger. This is not a joke, nor is Shiji's hypocrisy. If Roger is really willing to join forces with him, Shiji can really share the world with Roger. It's just that Roger felt that he and Shiji were not from the same group, and they couldn't urinate in the same pot. Therefore, even though Shiji invited him to join in public many times, Roger refused decisively. He felt that his ideals were completely different from Shiji's. He just wanted to find the end of the world, but Shiji wanted to seize the hegemony of this world. He, Roger, had no interest in hegemony at all. Okay. How many more years do I have left to live? What is the use of seizing hegemony in this world? But even though Roger rejected Shiji many times, Shiji still refused to give up. At this time, on the flagship of the Sky Pirates, Shiji was looking at the information in his hand and discussing something with Dr. Indigo. Dr. Indigo is Shiji's confidant. He has been following him for many years. He knows many secrets of Shiji. Unlike ordinary cotters, this guy does not have much fighting power. He is considered a scientific research talent. Are you sure? Roger made a rubbing of a historical text from Lingling. Shiji looked at the information in his hand and asked softly. Indigo nodded and said, "It's confirmed, that's right." That guy, does he have the means to understand this thing? A flash of light flashed in Shiji's eyes, and he couldn't help but think about it. Historical text, this thing is scattered all over the world, and it contains many unknown secrets. But ancient writing has always been strictly prohibited by the world government. Basically no one has this kind of knowledge. Therefore, not many people can interpret the historical text written in ancient characters. Shiji has been thinking about this thing over the years, but there is no progress now. In recent times, Shiji also noticed some changes. For example, some scholars who didn't know where they came from suddenly appeared on the sea, and they seemed to be studying the historical texts. They may have some insights into ancient texts. But these scholars are too mysterious and their whereabouts are unpredictable. Shiji never found them. Occasionally he had a few opportunities, but he arrived a step too late. The Navy killed these scholars in advance. The reason why Shiji pondered this historical text was not because he had an understanding of the history of more than 800 years ago. What thoughts and curiosity do you have? In fact, apart from historians, few people are interested in things that happened 800 years ago. Especially an ambitious hero like Shiji. In Shiji's view, no matter what happened 800 years ago, so what if the world government has some dirty information? People still have to live in the present and the future, and history is just history. What Shiji wants is to create the future. As long as I have enough with enough strength and power, you don't need to engage in these dirty materials, and you can still overthrow your world government. This is enough, right? So Shiji is not interested in those historical stories at all. The reason why he wants to destroy unlocking the secrets of ancient writing is just a matter of simply trying to find information about ancient weapons that can destroy the world from historical texts. Pluto, Poseidon, Uranus. Shiki is interested in these three things. But he has never found any relevant information. Now, he seems to have discovered something strange. The Roger pirates went to steal the historical text of Charlotte Lingling. This cannot be a whim. It must be that they have made some progress or prepared in this regard. Then it can be inferred that they now have, or will soon have, the means to decipher the historical text. From this, it can be judged that the Roger pirates, it is very possible that he has information about ancient weapons. Thinking of this, Shiji's eyes lit up. If this bastard Roger really has such a method, then he will invite him again, join forces with Roger, and share this power, something to seize the hegemony of the world. But if Roger refuses this time? When Shiji thought of this, a fierce look flashed in his eyes. Unlike in the past, Shiji could tolerate Roger's rejection. After all, although Roger was as famous as him, his status was not inferior to him. But in Shiji's view, Roger didn't pose much of a threat to him, because Roger always followed the route of a small number of elites and seemed to have no interest in maritime hegemony. He had no power to threaten Shiji's position. This is also the fundamental reason why Shiji can tolerate Roger's repeated rejection of him. And now, if the Roger pirates really master the secret of ancient weapons, then Shiki will not be able to let go of the Roger pirates no matter what. After all, people are harmless but tigers are harmful to others. You, Roger, can't just say that you are not interested in ancient weapons, and I, Shiji, will foolishly believe it, right? The Roger pirates, who possess ancient weapons, have the potential to threaten Shiji's status, which Shiji cannot tolerate. So Shiji decided to invite Roger again, if this bastard still refuses this time. He was going to be ruthless and destroy the Roger pirates in one fell swoop. Thinking of this, Shiji said, "Go, next, do your best to investigate the whereabouts of the Roger pirates, and gather all the subordinates scattered around. It's time to make a break with that bastard Roger." "Are you going to take action against Roger?" Indigo looked at Shiji with some surprise and asked. After all, in Indigo's view, Shiji has an unusual preference for Roger. Why can't he help it this time? Shiji's eyes looked a little uncomfortable. He gave up, but finally said in a deep voice, "We can't continue to let this bastard go, otherwise sooner or later, he will become a serious problem for me. When it comes to breaking, it is broken. His wrist is very decisive and he does things without hesitation. Behind his ruthlessness, he shows Shiji's courage. I have to say, if he hadn't met Roger, the man of destiny," Shiji said, "maybe they can really overthrow the world government. Seriously, meeting Roger is a mistake." Soon, Shiji's order was passed on, and the members of the flying pirates scattered in various sea areas of the New World began to move towards Shiji. The flagships gathered together, and for a while, people on the sea were panicked. After all, Shiji would cause a big incident every time he made a big move. The big pirate Wang Ji and the treasure captain John were not always like this. Shiji's hands? Reminiscent of Shiji's actions in the Chambord Islands not long ago, some people even doubted whether Shiji wanted to summon his own strength to break out of the New World and give the Navy headquarters a good look. "Shiji, we are here to collect information and whereabouts of Roger. The Navy headquarters is also in full swing at this time. Unlike a miscellaneous fish like Orgrim, Shiji's threat level is quite high. It can be said that in the number one person in the pirate field. Now that he has summoned his subordinates inexplicably, how can the Navy headquarters just sit and watch the show? If he doesn't figure out what this guy wants to do quickly, Sengoku, the general, may have insomnia at night. Although I think it should be impossible for G to go crazy and lead people to attack the Navy headquarters, but the Navy headquarters still made battle preparations and was always prepared for Shiji's surprise attack. The situation on the sea became tense again in an instant. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 109. Admiralty Marineford. At this time, senior Navy generals gathered in the large combat conference room in Marineford. Cyborg Sara, the naval marshal, also personally came to preside over the meeting. The two admirals of the Navy, Zifa and Sengoku, sat on the left and right sides of Cyborg respectively. After that, the other senior generals of the Navy sat down along these two rows. Even Sakaski, who was injured, participated in this meeting with a bandage on. He sat at the hand of General Zifa. Garp sat on Sengoku's side, followed by Kyuzan, Jun, Porisalino, Cake, and other vice admirals of various sizes from the Navy headquarters. Marshal Cyborg was holding a cigar in his mouth, puffing out a wisp of smoke. At this time, opposite the naval generals, there was a projection screen. Chief Staff Officer Ahe was standing there with a slender teaching stick in his hand. "Let's start." Marshal Cyborg saw that everyone had arrived, and gave instructions softly. As soon as he finished speaking, Senior Staff Officer Ahe nodded, and then pointed directly at the figure on the projection with the teaching stick in his hand. "The Great Pirate, Golden Lion, Shiki. I believe everyone is familiar with him, so I won't introduce him in detail." Senior Staff Officer Ahe pointed at Shiji's photo. The other big guys also nodded. "Those who can sit here are all senior generals of the Navy. How could they not know a villain like Shiji? 3 days ago, we received news that Shiji had begun to gather the Sky Pirates. Judging from his past deeds, we can draw a definite conclusion that Shiji must be making some big move." Consultant Ahe said again. The expressions of the other bosses changed a bit, but they all nodded in agreement with this judgment. "After all, you said Shijixian was fine. What kind of exercises or parties were you doing? That's too much nonsense. However, we now know nothing about Shiji's purpose. The intelligence department has stepped up its investigation. At today's meeting, we also want to consult everyone for your opinions and see what guesses and ideas you have." Consultant Ahe said softly. At this moment, Marshal Cyborg knocked on the table, focusing everyone's attention on him. Then he exhaled a puff of smoke and said in a deep voice, "As far as the current situation is concerned, it will take almost a month for the Golden Lion's fleet to be assembled. Within this month, we must make an accurate judgment on them. Let's discuss it." Shiji's large fleet is scattered in various places in the New World. If there is nothing happening on weekdays, Shiji will not summon them. But once it is called up, it will take almost a month to assemble from various sea areas in the New World. "Is it possible that Sky is going to have a showdown with Newgate?" General Zifa asked softly. "In today's New World, excluding Roger, the Luskai, Shiji, and Newgate are the most powerful. Shiji has killed many people in the past 2 years. People who can threaten him. For example, Wangji, Captain John, etc. These were all Shiji's little friends back then. Although Whitebeard is not as ambitious and aggressive as Shiji, there are indeed many. To deal with those pirates, such as Silver Axe, this guy was beaten by Whitebeard. From the situation point of view, the 2 largest forces in the New World are the Whitebeard pirates and the Golden Lion pirates. Now the Navy has, after evacuating the New World, only 3 naval bases were left in the gateway waters of the New World. Basically, the control and threat to the New World have been lost. In this case, Shiji, an ambitious guy, wants to. It doesn't seem impossible to get rid of the Whitebeard and completely secure your position as the pirate overlord? Is there any news about the Whitebeard pirates?" the Warring States General then asked. "If Shiji really wants to kill that Whitebeard guy, it's impossible for Whitebeard to not even react at all, right? However, in recent times, the Whitebeard pirates have also been very strange. They disappeared from the New World. Yes, such a naughty pirate group disappeared without a trace. The territory and other things are still there, and the flags are also hung. Those key members of the Moby Dick ship were missing, along with Whitebeard. And this has been disappearing for some time. Ever since the Navy began to evacuate the New World, there has been no trace of them. The Navy headquarters has also been searching for it for a long time, but there seems to be no sign yet." Senior Staff Officer Ahe shook his head when he heard this and said, "No, there has been no news about them in all sea areas around the world during this time. Our intelligence department is stepping up the investigation." Lieutenant General Garp also spoke at this time and said, "Then it's strange. Our Navy's intelligence capability is much better than that of the pirates. We can't even find Whitebeard, but Shiji can find it? It may not necessarily be Whitebeard. Aren't there rumors on the sea that Shiji's target may be our Navy headquarters?" Durag suddenly smiled and said. The others were stunned for a moment, and then they all laughed again. The Navy had indeed made preparations in this regard to guard against Shiji's sudden attack. But the problem is, this kind of preparation can only be regarded as preparedness. Who among the big guys present thinks that Shiji will come back to attack the Navy headquarters? Not a single one. After all, although their Navy withdrew from the New World in some embarrassment, the Navy was still the overlord of the sea, with a cloud of masters and a powerful military. Shiji could not handle it alone. If he dares to come to Marineford to cause trouble, with so many big guys here, why don't they beat him to death? However, everyone laughed, but Durag's words could be regarded as a direction. With just a little suspicion, it's not certain that Shiji is going to fight the Whitebeard pirates. I don't think it's very likely that he will take action with Newgate. Consultant Ahe also said softly. What's the reason? Marshal Cyborg asked in a deep voice. Because Shiji should know very well in his heart how difficult Newgate is to mess with. Once the Whitebeard pirates and the Golden Lion pirates start a full-scale war, they will definitely not have the last laugh. Senior Staff Officer Ahe analyzed. The Warring States General was also a famous wise general. Listening to Senior Staff Officer Ahe's words, he also analyzed with approval. Yes, judging from the actions of Shiji and Whitebeard in the past few years, the two of them he is indeed deliberately avoiding conflicts. After everyone heard this, they seemed to have come to their senses. Shiki or Whitebeard? In the past 2 years, there has been no particularly fierce conflict, and one particularly distinctive feature can be judged from Shiji's behavior. That's why Shiji is sparing no effort to eliminate the second-rate players. Wang Ji and John are representative figures among them. It can be seen that Shiji wants to kill these guys who may threaten him first, and then wait until these threats are eliminated. Let's compete with Whitebeard again. At that time, no matter whether Shiji can kill Newgate or not, at least there will be no fishermen to benefit, right? In other words, it is unlikely that Shiji will target Whitebeard this time. Perhaps, does he want to take action against Charlotte Lingling or Kaido? Garp touched his chin and thought. This possibility cannot be ruled out. Marshal Cyborg thought for a while and said. As for Roger, everyone thinks there is no such possibility. Roger cannot threaten Shiji. Besides, who on the sea doesn't know Shiji's love for Roger? There is no reason to suddenly fall out. After a pause, Marshal Cyborg looked at Sengoku and asked, when you were in the Chambord Islands, did you find any conflicts or abnormalities between Shiji and Kaido? The Warring States General was stunned for a moment, and after thinking for a while, he said, I didn't find anything special. Those two bastards basically had no communication. It is true that the relationship is not good, but there is no special conflict that is revealed. At this moment, Jun suddenly said, is it because of the incident on the Shampoo Islands that Shiki discovered that Kaido's threat level is high enough? So he doesn't want to let Kaido go anymore. Maybe they both want to grab that Orgrim, so they can't stand each other, so they want to have a fight. Kyuzan suddenly said with a smile. This possibility cannot be ruled out. This guy Garp also took up the topic and said. I have made a recommendation in the past 2 days, all thanks to the support of book friends. I will continue to work hard. Flowers, monthly passes, and reviews are all welcome. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 110. On the first day of the meeting, the Navy bosses did not discuss any valuable results. But there was still time. After all, Shiji had to have a month to prepare. Although the Navy headquarters did not produce any effective discussions, it did come up with some plans. For example, if we pay more attention to the New World, this time it is very likely that the Navy will counterattack the New World. If Shiji really caused a bloody storm in the pirate camp, the Navy might not be able to benefit from it. Therefore, Marshal Cyborg, Warring States General, and Garp made some decisions, and some elite lieutenant generals have already received orders. They will secretly enter the G-1 naval base in the New World and wait for a while. That's right, even the Marshal will go. If Shiji really holds a party and doesn't cause any big incident, then forget it and just treat it as a Marshal going there to inspect. If Shiji really did cause some big incident, it would be easier for the marshal to be in charge there. In fact, during the Battle of Adver, the Navy marshals, Garp, Sengoku and others were indeed in the New World. And I got the news immediately and wanted to intervene. And it just so happened that Garp's team refused another promotion to a general, which fascinated Kyuzan. After the meeting, in the corridor of the Navy Justice Building, Kyuzan was laughing and chatting with a lieutenant general from the giant tribe next to him. The Navy has reached some agreements with the world's most powerful country, the country of giants. Speaking of which, this agreement has something to do with the human trafficker Nun. In order to strengthen mutual cooperation between the country of giants and the world government, some powerful combat capabilities will be input into the Navy. This combat capability has now formed a unique feature in the Navy. That is the special class of Lieutenant Generals, Lieutenant General of the Giants. That's right, every giant warrior who joins the Navy will be directly awarded the rank of Lieutenant General of the Navy headquarters and enjoy consistent treatment. What do these Lieutenant Generals say? If it's not enough compared to the top, it's more than enough than the bottom. It's enough to deal with ordinary pirates, but it won't play a key role in dealing with really powerful guys. Masters such as Whitebeard and Shiji can basically kill ordinary giant lieutenant generals instantly. However, the Navy has such a large base and there is no shortage of experts. What is lacking is the backbone that can stabilize various sea areas. Therefore, the giant vice admiral is still very useful in the Navy. It is not just occupying the manhole and not shitting. Among the giant lieutenant generals, there are also some very powerful guys. This good friend of Kyuzan is the leader of this generation of giants. Hagowal D. Saro. Yes, this guy is still a successor of D. It has been many years since he joined the Navy, much earlier than Kyuzan. If I had to say it, he could be considered at the same time as Garp. After all, the giants have a very long lifespan. Take the world government for example. 800 years of history seems very meaningful, but for the country of giants, for the giants who have just grown up at this stage, that is, my grandfather's time, it is not a big deal. How? Didn't you sleep well? Sorrow. Kyuzan looked at Sorrow who was yawning and joked with a smile. It's not that, it's mainly because I couldn't understand the meeting very well, so I felt a little sleepy. Sorrow responded with a smile. He has a good temper, a very kind heart, a full sense of justice, and gets along very well with Kyuzan. He really felt that the meeting just now had nothing to do with him, and the giants didn't have the ability to go there. What about Shiji and Whitebeard? Otherwise, if you just become a general, why would you be a lieutenant general? This time you are going to enter a new world with us. How about some more snacks? Kyuzan said with a smile. My mission is different from yours. I'm here to find those scholars who study taboos. I really don't know where they came from. Sorrow waved his hands and said helplessly. Yes, baffling. When Kyuzan heard about this, he felt a little helpless. In recent times, expedition teams of scholars often appear on the sea to search for some ancient ruins, focusing on historical texts. The world government is very concerned about this. Sensitivity requires the Navy to resolve this matter as soon as possible. The Navy has also arrested many such scholars, but they have no identification at all, and they have killed those who cannot tell where they are. Therefore, until now, the Navy I still haven't figured out where these inexplicable scholars come from. Kyuzan has also heard about these scholars, and he feels very helpless. Do you think they are particularly evil? In fact, they are just pursuing some knowledge. They are not like pirates at all. It's outrageous. But you say they are not evil, but they are indeed studying things that are expressly prohibited by the world government, and this kind of illegal behavior is a serious crime among serious crimes. From the perspective of threat, it is extremely evil. From a human point of view, Kyuzan sympathized with them, but from a legal point of view, it can only be said that they were seeking death. Therefore, The task of arresting scholars was very despised in the navy, and in the end it fell in the hands of the hard-working giant lieutenants. Alas, it's difficult for you too. Kuzan said with some emotion. It's just too difficult for me. Sorrow curled his lips and said. At the same time, near the New World portal sea, the originally calm sea surface suddenly became turbulent. Then, a huge narwhal hit its horn and broke the water surface. Then, the originally calm sea surface suddenly became turbulent. The coating covering the hull also exploded with a pop. The majestic deep-sea overlord, the black narwhal, appeared in the waters of the New World. Orgrim was standing happily at this time. On the deck, I took a breath of fresh air and couldn't help but sigh. Is this the New World? Love it, love it. Beckman was holding a telescope in his hand and was looking around carefully. After a long time, he said it doesn't feel much different from the first half of the Grand Line. As soon as he finished speaking, my hawk said very coldly, that's because you haven't seen the horror of the sea area yet. Have you seen it? Ah, yes, you have been here many times. Tell us about it. Beckman patted my hawk on the shoulder and asked curiously. My hawk was stunned for a moment, remembering the time when hailstones as big as hills suddenly fell from the sky. At that time, he was wandering alone. On the sea, I was very embarrassed and rowed back and forth with the black knife and night oar in my hand, and finally managed to survive. Damn, this kind of embarrassing thing, my proud my hawk, will you tell me? So when he came back to his senses, my hawk raised his chin and said very proudly, you will know in the future. After saying that, he turned around and left the place, leaving Beckman confused. What is this guy so arrogant about? Beckman touched his chin and murmured in confusion. Orgrim laughed and said, tell me, if his little sampan encountered any extreme weather in the New World, how would he escape? Beckman was stunned for a moment, and then he seemed to have imagined that scene, laughed, and understood why my hawk was unwilling to say more just now. At this moment, a newsbird landed, and Orgrim casually took out 2 Baileys and exchanged newspapers with them. At the same time, he murmured, after staying on Fishman Island for a week, I can understand the closed nature there. What is going on at sea? It happened, it was completely unimaginable. I can finally receive new news. As he spoke, Orgrim opened the newspaper. After casually reading it for a few times, his expression suddenly changed. The Roger pirates stole the Big Mom pirates' treasure? Shiji is gathering a large fleet? In just a moment, Orgrim seemed to think of something.